hold a second. And we are live. For the record, seated in the boardroom is Dr. Merle Harris, Chair of the Academic and Student Advisory Committee, and Dr. Jane Gates, Provost and Senior Vice President of Student and Academic Affairs. Turning the meeting to Dr. Harris.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. This is a little strange being in the boardroom, and the problem is I might not hear you well. There's a little bit of an echo in here, so I'll try my best. The other thing is I don't think you can see who's actually speaking, so it's going to be a very, very different kind of a meeting, and I apologize for that. I will call on Pat to actually take the attendance.
Chair Harris.
Here.
Regent Budd.
Here.
Regent Howery.
Here.
Regent Porth.
Here.
Regent Susanker.
Here.
She's there.
Yeah, Regent Susanker.
I'm here.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Student Regent Noriega. Student Regent Noriega. I think she's here, but she didn't respond. And lastly, Regent Noriega.
Okay? Yes, I'm here.
Thank you.
No problem.
And Regent Eovine. Regent Eovine, not present. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pat. I want to welcome our new student regent, Julia Noriega, who I believe is chair of the Student Advisory Committee. And this is her first meeting joining us, and we look forward to working with her throughout her term. I will then, let's go to the agenda itself. The first item before we actually approve the minutes is to get a KPI report. And we have two experts here. Dr. Greg DeSantis, I believe, is on screen, and Dr. Bill Gamble is seated here in the boardroom. You will recall we received some of this information at our board meeting last month, and there were some questions, and we're pleased to have our experts here to talk about the KPI and respond to questions from board members. Greg, are you going to start?
Yes, thank you, Regent Harrison, and my regrets for not being there with you in that boardroom today, but I will be soon. And looking forward to it. So let me give you just 60 seconds for folks who might not be aware of how we got to this point. And then Dr. Gamble will take over with a bit of detail about this year's report. So in June of 2018, the Board of Regents committed the CSCU system to the Guided Pathways Initiative. That initiative now spans about a half dozen policies that have been approved by the board, things like the ACME policy, things like CCS, College and Career Success 101, things like the areas of study. The very first policy that was approved by the Academic and Student Affairs Subcommittee and the Board of Regents was the Student Success Key Performance Indicators policy that was just about 3 years ago in October of 2018. So this is the fourth annual report on Student Success Key Performance Indicators. And the point of these key performance indicators is to have leading indicators, meaning that they are available very soon after the academic year ends. So the data that has been presented to everyone across the system, including the board and publicly 4 times now, this is the 4th annual report, is data for the most recent year of students that entered the community colleges for the first time. So this is both full-time and part-time first-time students. So if you're a first-time ever in college student, whether you're full-time or part-time, you are included in this report. And the report looks back at that fall 2020 incoming cohort of students and how they did over the first year across more than 20 indicators, with some of them being things that we might highlight in particular today. So that's just how we got here. And Bill, I'll hand it off to you.
Thanks, Greg. Well, as Greg mentioned, this is the fourth year we've published these data, but the data cover 8 years. And we started collecting the data for the fall of 2013 because that was the first semester that we started to pilot what eventually would be PA 1240. PA 1240 came on in full force in the fall of 2014. So we've got a good look back at where we were before a number of different initiatives have been implemented. And in this year's report, we're finally seeing some cracks in the ice, you might say. You know, things are starting to change a little bit. Greg mentioned leading indicators as opposed to lagging indicators that we're more familiar with in higher education metrics. In the past, we've relied on 3-year graduation rates for the community college, 6-year graduation rates for the 4-year institutions. And actually, those data, you know, while they're useful in many contexts, when you're trying to fix things in real time, they don't work. And so this was this is why we went to the KPIs. And I like to think of them as they are leading indicators, but less lagging indicators. And what I mean by that is you still have to wait till the end of the semester or to the end of the first academic year. But that gives you time to read the data and react and make changes if changes are indicated. An example I gave to Dr. Gates this morning of a less lagging indicator is that this is the second day in a row that I've had to wear a necktie for the first time in about a year and a half, and I take that as a good sign of things are changing. So, having said that, when we look at the KPIs for this year, and there are 23 of them, and I'll just talk about these for a couple of minutes here, and then I know that this was stimulated by questions, and Greg and I can field questions at that point. But two that jumped out this year was KPI 2, which is the percentage of students who have earned 24 or more college-level credits after year 1. And in 2013, 12% of those new students achieved that goal. In the fall of 2020, it was 19%. So it's almost double the percentage. And we use that KPI of 24 credits because all of the research that's been done in higher education as far as propensity for graduation stems on if you achieve 24 credits in your first year, then the probability of graduating jumps significantly. And so that's why we use that indicator. And that is an encouraging sign. Another one that jumped out this year too was, let's see, KPI 16, and that's the percentage of students who have attempted 15 or more credits, including developmental, in their first semester. Now, what's happening there is that what we're trying to do is to get students used to taking a full load. Again, is one of those things that when you work towards a full load and you start to achieve that, then you're building up your confidence and you're building up academic momentum. And so what we saw there is, again, it went from 10% to 19%, so it's up. A couple other ones jumped out of me, even though they're not in the report. KPI 1 was the percentage of students who earned 15 or more college-level credits after year 1. And that went from 34% to 37%. And I mention that one because, as we know, the the great majority of our students are part-time in the community colleges. And so while we may aspire and wish to have as many as we can at the full-time level, this is a way to look at what's happening with the part-timers as well. One which was a little discouraging is that the average number of credits earned in the first year, the percentage of students who earned 0 credits of any kind in the first term went from 12% in 2013 to 20% in the fall of 2020. Now, there may be a number of things that affect that kind of metric, and if you think about, this was in the midst of COVID, and there was a lot of difficulty in communicating with students remotely, and some students may just have dropped out, mentally dropped out, and didn't go through it officially. And so we're going to have to keep an eye on that particular metric once we get back to some sense of normalcy. At this point, I think I want to sort of leave it there. I know you all have received the reports, and in that report, there's a link to the dashboards where you can look at specific KPIs in a number of different contexts. You can look at it overall for the system, for the region, for individual campuses. And I think at this point, I'll just pause and see what questions you might have.
Thank you. That's an overview. I see Regent Bud, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do. I was concerned about 2 things. The inclusion of part-timers in your calculation, and if you do it by percentages rather than numbers, it is troubling to me as to what it may reveal, because certainly part-timers don't take full loads and they don't graduate in the same numbers. The other question I have is, do you compare your percentages against the number of enrolled students? Because the percentages can go up when the number that have been enrolled goes down. So, and you haven't increased the number of students that are doing this. So I don't have the numbers in front of me. I know in your charts, you usually show how many have been enrolled, so that would be helpful. But the breakdown between full-time and part-time, I think, is very important, unless you're doing actual numbers as opposed to percentages.
Well, I think the reason that part-timers are included is that up to this point, when I was mentioning the old lagging indicators, we were always relying on populations which were first-time full-time students. And first-time full-time students is in my humble opinion, is a inappropriate sample to be looking at if you're trying to evaluate programs, institutions, and student outcomes, because it's such a small percentage of our students. And if you include the part-timers and the full-timers in the same base that you're doing, rising tides raise all boats. And so even though you may not see that beautiful picture about the percentage that are completing 30 credits in a year, even though you've got part-timers in there, you're still going to see a rise in things. As far as the using percentages versus in your comment about the declining enrollments, it's true. I mean, our enrollments are declining. We all know that. And what we're seeing is the percentage of the students that we're serving at a given point in time. I don't see how you can reconcile. I mean, you can approach it in a different way.
Bill, maybe I could. Sorry.
Pardon me.
Greg?
Maybe I could just share my screen for a second, because I just want to show folks how you can see very early on in the report every year where some of those things can be found that you're asking about, Regent Bud. So if that's okay, I think I have permission still to share. So can you all see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I gotta make it larger. Can we make it larger?
That might be as big as it gets because it's a web page. Is that any bigger?
Classes might help.
They help me too at this point. Well, I can tell you this because you can look at it here too. So
Yeah.
this is the report itself. So you can see once you get past the initial report at the beginning, it's the very first page right here of data. The very first page of data is data for all 12 community college campuses. And so I'll just highlight a couple things here. One is at the very bottom, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see what I'm highlighting on my screen, but you can see here the N is 7,751. So it's certainly down from the 10,689
Right.
2013. So it's a smaller number of students and a pretty big drop from the previous year. And again, this is counting not all of the students that are enrolled at the colleges. This is that cohort of first-time, both full-time and part-time students. When you think about part-time versus full-time, we have that built into the KPIs as well as you're reading through this. So if you look at KPI 15 and KPI 16, those are attempt-based key performance indicators. So you can see here that typically for KPI 15, about half of our students are full-time. They're taking at least 12 credits. That jumped up this year to about 64%. So nearly 2/3 of the students who were first time ever in college were attempting a full-time load. Very few of our students, though, make that next step up to 15 credits. As you can see here, it's ranged from 10% in 2013 for KPI 16, highlighted in yellow, all the way up to about 19% this most recent year, 2020. So positive trends for both of those things in terms of the students who are attempting 12 credits or more or attempting 15 credits or more as a cohort. So that helps to give you a picture of why we include both full-time and part-time students. It's somewhere between about 50-50 full-time, part-time, and maybe about 2/3 this past year full-time compared to about 1/3 part-time. But all of them are engaged in other KPIs regardless of how many they're attempting. For example, one of the ones that we think is most important, KPI 6 in yellow up there at the top, percentage of students who have passed both college level math and college level English in year one. That's fall, winter, spring, and summer. You can see that's pretty steady. That's been between 20 and 23%. But that is something that we hope that all students will eventually do, both full-time and part-time students within their first year.
You know, I take your 10,000 from the first 13 and compare it to the 7,700, basically your 3,000 difference, which is about somewhat more than 20%. And if you apply that percentage to the differential that you can show between 13 and 21, it's not that different.
Right.
In other words, by the reduction of number of students, it would also be helpful, in my opinion, to see how the reduction played out between full-time and part-time. I think drilling down gives you in my view, a math person, I'm a math person, you know, it would give me more information that I could be somewhat reliant on, not reliant, but at least feel good about something changing. But a lot of these numbers, one, haven't moved and in fact have gone down, and the enrollment has gone down. So I'm not sure if we're doing anything helpful. I don't want to be a downer, needless to say, because we're all on the same page. Everybody would like to see some progress, but I'm not sure I can feel like there is much progress.
I would tend to agree personally. And if I can make two quick comments. One is that you can drill down to that level in the visualizations at the website linked in the email sent to everyone. It's www.ct.edu/KPI. You can choose to look only at part-time students or only at full-time students to see that movement for any particular indicator. So this is the high level, broad look at things.
I see.
And
I like that separation. I'll do that. It's
and if there are any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer them, or I'm sure Bill would as well. The one other thing is, keep in mind, these are students from fall 20, and most of the, if not all of the guided pathways work that's happening won't really be scaled until sometime between this year that we're in right now for some of the earliest colleges, for example, engaging in guided pathways advising, all the way out to several years from now when we think about things like ACME. So all the pieces won't really be in place, and the movement probably won't be very dramatic in terms of increases in student success until all of those things are implemented. So I think it's probably not surprising that we're seeing a relatively steady look at the data.
You know, I would not have expected any results from guided pathways yet. And my guess is the results have to do with what's happening in terms of COVID and everything else and reduction. And we'll see a change coming up. Would you give me that again? www.edu,
Yep, it's ct.edu
the regular, and
slash
then slash KPI.
API, and that's also on the agenda.
Good. Thanks a lot. I will check it. I'm curious. Thanks a lot.
Madam Chair? One thing I would add to the nuance of splitting out part-time and full-time students is that when you're splitting out the part-time students, they're part-time students first semester when they started. We don't know if they're full-time in the second semester. So, because you can't characterize a student that keeps flip-flopping their status type. And so it's basically those students that started part-time or started full-time. And that will have some kind of an effect when you start looking at full-year statistics.
Starting next year, we should be able to look back and see numbers for those students that did implement guided pathways earlier, correct? So we should be able to begin to see if we're making some progress using our new tools.
Yeah, if I could respond to that, Regent Harris, I think we are likely to see some difference in terms of the campuses that have fully scaled guided pathways advising, which I'm going to be careful to separate here from the full umbrella of guided pathways. That's just one aspect of it. So those students will now have someone in place at those campuses who will be their person. They'll be with them from start to finish, advising them, monitoring how it's going, and supporting them as they progress through their degree. On the other hand, there are aspects that won't be implemented even on those campuses for some years. ACME is a good example of that will be implemented by faculty on a timeline that they're currently developing. So those students who are being supported still might not have the supported in terms of guided pathways advising, still might not see the co-requisite supports at scale that they will eventually see with ACME, or they might not see the clear pathway that will come when all of the programs are aligned for Connecticut State Community College and the areas of study are at full scale. So every piece of this will hopefully move the needle a little bit, but what states around the country have seen is any one part doesn't move the needle all that much, if at all. So we're crossing our fingers for individual campuses for the 2021 cohort that you'll see next October.
The other question I have is, are there other institutions across the community colleges using some of these metrics? Because one of the things we always want to see is if are comparable institutions, are we doing as well or better than those institutions?
Greg, I'm going to refer to you on this after I just make one statement, and that is that my understanding is that there's a number of institutions and systems that are participating in achieving the dream that use some form of KPIs. They basically translate to the same thing. You're interested in knowing how many completed 15 credits in a semester, or how many passed with a C or better in English or math at a college level. But these were developed in-house, these 23 for our specific needs. Greg, you want to add to that?
Yeah, it's a good way of thinking about it, that these are built for Connecticut, that these were the things that we wanted to know about, and the way that we define each of these key performance indicators, meaning what exactly does it mean to pass math, or what does it mean to attempt? is built for Connecticut. Now, there are similar key performance indicators in other states. There were numerous states, some big ones like California, that we looked at when we were developing these key performance indicators in 2018 and working with Jobs for the Future, Achieving the Dream, Complete College America, other organizations like that, to think about how should we build key performance indicators that work for Connecticut. So we can compare to some extent, although we should be cautious when we do so. There is a step forward that we're making, which is that all institutions in CSCU, so both the 2-year and 4-year institutions, are now part of the Post-Secondary Data Partnership, or the PDP. So that Post-Secondary Data Partnership, or PDP, is institutions that are across the country submitting data through the National Student Clearinghouse, which we already use to submit data for federal review, and using that data to be able to look across states. That's de-identified data that will be able to tell us ultimately, not quite yet, but ultimately, to answer that question that you're asking, Regent Harris, about how do we compare to other states nearby who participate in that PDP, or across the country who participate in the PDP, on any given indicator that the PDP measures, because those PDP measures are common across all institutions. So that's sort of the next phase of things. We'll always have these student success KPIs and other indicators for Connecticut that work well for us, because we'll be able to adjust them and monitor them as we go. But there is that movement now that we've become a part of to have national data that we can compare.
Okay, thank you. Are there other questions? Regent Poor?
Thank you. Can you talk a little bit more, please, about KPI 12, the percentage of students who persisted from term 1 to term 2? I assume that much of it has to do with the pandemic, but I'd love to try to understand a little bit more about what seems to be a significant drop-off. Thanks.
Bill, do you want to start that, or me? Hopefully you can all see the screen again.
Well, I misheard, I didn't hear which KPI was. 12?
12.
Okay, yeah. Well, basically, that's a statistic that just, what percentage of students continue on to the second semester, which is a common metric used in the community college system. And why it dropped off in the fall of 2020, that was in the semester that followed the shutdown of COVID-19. And again, I think I had alluded to it before, that some of the difficulties we may have experienced and students may have experienced as far as trying to continue with their coursework when they went remote over a weekend, basically, probably affected those that thought maybe they would just take a time out in the fall of 2020. At least that's my armchair analysis of it.
Thanks, Bill.
This is also, you're talking about those that started in the fall of 2020.
Oh, you're right. Thank you for correcting me.
Yeah, but because I think what some of this might reflect too is that was the first year of PAC. So we may have had a number of students that like the idea of free college, enrolled in fall of 2020, and found, I really can't do this. It was easy to enroll, you didn't have to pay anything. So I don't know if that affected those numbers or not.
Yes. Regent Borth, disregard anything I just said.
No, do you think that might have happened?
Well, I'm just sort of stuck on the way I was translating it from the spring to the fall.
Right.
There's a number of hypotheses that we're just going to have to look at the data going forward, and that things start to get clearer.
He's the researcher. I just hypothesize. You can tell right away.
There's one other. Sorry.
Yeah, Greg.
There's one other piece that I could add too, is the purpose of this really, from the system office academic and student affairs perspective, is to produce this and have it available to the folks who are the practitioners, the faculty, the staff, the administrators, who are working directly with these students, so that they can see that gap, so that they can see there was a difference. And we've highlighted that in a few different KPIs, that so that they can hopefully attend to that in the next year. So this became available to folks about a month ago. And they could see that there is that drop in KPI 12 from 72% the previous year of students that are persisting from fall to spring to 66%. And think about what are actions they can take relatively immediately as they're just about to start enrolling students for the spring term to ensure that that gets back up to where it typically is. You know, 3/4 persistence might be pretty typical. You might always see something like that. But if there is a dip like this, the data, the less lagging indicator data that we see here, as Bill has described it so well, allows people to make real-time decisions about where they might want to devote resources and approaches to support students.
Thank you.
So I wanted to just add from national data and research, and this is Jane speaking here, Jane Gates. We do know that whether it's fall 2020, the economic impact, particularly on underserved populations, continue to, if we look at the decline there because of the need to bring in additional income, persons whose jobs are no longer available there, in addition to childcare. There are so many other multiple variables that affect those students, even though entering community college was free, that still is not enough to close the financial gap and the hardship that many of our students and their families experience as a result of COVID pandemic. So that's something we're talking about nationally. And I'm glad that we are taking note of that. And at some point, I'm hoping that there will be some correction in the pandemic environment, hopefully globally.
Thank you.
Other questions? Holly?
Hi, good morning, Merle. Thank you for the report and for the explanation. I have a question about KPI 22, which feels pretty alarming. So is it possible that some of those students were taking developmental classes, non-credit classes that they passed? Or are we saying 1 in 5 first-time students either failed or withdrew from all of their classes their first semester?
Yeah, Regent Howard, let me share the screen again, because that's an important difference between two different KPIs. So you can now see this again. If you see KPI 20 and I'm sorry, let me correct that. KPI 21 and KPI 22. So those are two different measures. This is, I'm sorry, I'm going to keep doing the wrong one. 22 and 23 rather. So KPI 22, which you asked about, is the percentage of students who earned 0 credits of any kind in the first term fall. KPI 23 is percentage of students who earned 0 college level credits in the first term. So the KPI 22 does mean that those students earned nothing, no credits of any kind, and those included developmental courses. So you could see a pretty big leap. Even if we just look from one year to the next, we went from 16% of those students to 20% of those students. And at least at the Academic and Student Affairs division at the system level, we've had some conversations about that, to think about if you had fewer students who were here in 2020, going from 9,000 to about 7,700, who was not in that group? And does it mean that more students who were sort of, if you want to think of it one way, on either end, the extremes maybe of the spectrum here, we had more students in one KPI that were accumulating credits. That percentage went up. And then on the other end, we had more students who were not accumulating anything in the fall. And so maybe there was some effect of, COVID and all of the things that Provost Gates described that are impacts on students that really meant a big divide between whether students were able to succeed in credit accumulation. I'll highlight one other thing here if I could, and my apologies for a very rapid scroll through the document. But if you look down here at, I believe this is page 17, this is the disaggregation of all the data, which you can also do on that KPI website in the visualizations, but we put it out here for everyone so they could see some pretty extreme differences. And I'll call out, for example, KPI 2. So that's a credit accumulation indicator of the percentage of students who earn 24 or more college level credits after the first year. And you can see that although numbers are improving for most groups here, for both, I'll call out white, Latinx, and Black students in those first three columns for KPI 2, 27%, 13%, and 9%. Those are all high watermarks, but at the same time, the gap is widening in terms of the differences in terms of credit accumulation for white students compared to Black students and white students compared to Latinx students. So these are things that we hope, again, the practitioners, the folks who are making decisions about this, and as Guided Pathways policy is implemented, that we work toward ensuring that these gaps that are really gaps that the institutions have to be concerned with, they're not representative of, from my perspective, student deficit, but instead deficits in terms of how we serve our students and how the structures are set up to benefit our students. And that's both in CSCU and beyond CSCU. These are things I hope we can attend to as we continue this conversation.
Great, thank you for the explanation. I appreciate it.
Any other questions? Well, thank you. Thank you both very much. It's a lot of data, and I hope, and as we all do, that as we progress with so much of the Guided Pathways program, that we will see changes in these numbers as we move along. I'm sure we will, and I hope there's significant changes. So thank you very much for presenting this and answering these questions.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to the first item on the agenda, which is approval of the minutes of October 7th, 2021. May I have a motion?
I so move.
Second.
Second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, anyone not approving? Then the motion carries. Thank you. Let's move on to item number 3. We have 2 items, program discontinuations on the consent calendar. May I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I don't see anyone left to disapprove, so the motion carries. Let's go on to action items. The first is the accreditation of a licensed program. And as you recall, we combined licensure and accreditation into one vote, but we said because we were doing that, we wanted to see the program back again after 7 semesters. So this is our first program. This is Cybersecurity Bachelor of Science program at Central Connecticut State University. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Dr. Gates.
Thank you, Chair Harris. Central Connecticut State University seeks approval for the continued accreditation of a program in cybersecurity leading to a Bachelor of Science. The program has worked closely with an industrial advisory board to ensure that the curriculum provides students with up-to-date skills required to be successful in the job market. A mark of the program's success is that it has exceeded projections in both enrollment and revenue. Provost Kimberly Costellas will speak to the proposal and introduce colleagues as needed to comment and answer questions.
Good morning, Regents. This is Dr. Mary Ann Fallon. I am standing in for Dr. Costellas today. As Dr. Gates said, we're very proud of our cybersecurity program. It's an interdisciplinary program housed in the departments of computer science and computer electronics and graphics technology. This program was implemented in fall 2018 and prepares students for careers in information security, which aligns with Governor Lamont's workforce strategic plan. And despite the pandemic, the program has robust enrollment growth. In fall 2020, we had 70 full-time students, and in fall 2021, we have 92 full-time students. In fall 2020, we had 8 part-time students, and that has grown to 21 part-time students this fall. So our enrollment exceeds our initial full-time equivalent projections from 2018 by nearly 30 full-time equivalent students. Thank you, Regent Howery, for the applause. We feel the same way. Given our labor demand, we expect the program to sustain this growth. So with us today are Dr. Chad Williams, Associate Professor and Chair of the Department of Computer Science, as well as Dr. Xiaobing Hou, Professor of the Department of Computer Electronics and Graphics Technology, and they're happy to answer your specific questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from board members? I think everyone's so
Yeah, I
pleased
have
to
one
see the
question.
number.
How'd they do it?
Dr. Regent
Because
Bud.
a lot of other people haven't done it.
Dr. Williams, Dr. Hou, what's your secret?
Okay.
Dr. Williams, I think you're muted.
Okay. Are we all?
All right,
I
I
guess we're all
withdraw my
set.
question. Guess there's no answer besides talent.
Are you able to hear me now? Okay. So I think Apollo is identifying a area of job growth, building upon 2 accredited programs and looking for cooperation among within our own university as well as across the community colleges to also build a TAP pipeline into those programs.
Yeah, we have very good relation with our local business and the industry. We have our IAB members include some major employers in the state. For example, our source UTC, they give us a very good guidance.
We're very successful and congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, all in favor of the motion, excuse me, to accredit the license program Cybersecurity, Bachelor of Science at Central Connecticut State University. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. Thank you very much and congratulations. That's what we like to see. Okay, our next program is the Doctorate in Social Work at Southern Connecticut State University, page 29 of your agenda. Dr. Gates.
Southern Connecticut State University seeks approval for the accreditation of a licensed program in social work leading to a doctorate of social work. In their report from the September 2020 site visit, NECHI was highly satisfied with the degree to which the learning outcomes for the DSW program have been achieved. In addition, the program is highly sustainable with a strong applicant pool, successful student outcomes, and strong social work department reputation. So presenting today are Dr. Trudy Milburn, the Associate Vice President for Academic Affairs, and Dr. Sandra Bolmer, Dean of the College of Health and Human Services.
Thank you, Provost Gates. We're pleased to bring our DSW program forward for review.
Is the microphone on, do you know?
Is it on?
No, it is not.
Hear me now?
Yeah, that's better, because I want to make sure everyone can hear. Thank
you, Provost Gates, and Regent Harris, for the opportunity to present our DSW to you today. We, as you had mentioned, had a very successful NECHI visit, which was recommended as a substantive change because we had, this was our 3rd doctorate program And I have Dean Bulmer here to speak further about the program.
Thank you so much for having us here today. We are going to continue the good news that Central had and really take a victory lap here on a program that was very well thought out by our faculty, well researched and planned with partnerships with our community and highly successful. I wanted to also just give some context. There's been a lot to be troubled about with enrollment, with the pandemic, with how our underserved communities are not thriving right now. But the College of Health and Human Services at Southern Connecticut State University is just really at an exciting moment. And we have an aggressive strategic plan for growth. We have a new building that you have supported us that will be opening in the spring. And we have a plan to aggressively grow enrollments in areas that we haven't been able to in the past with waiting lists of students. So we are really excited. We can't wait to host you in our new building in the spring when we open and tour you through. And we have some exciting partnerships we'll be announcing over the next couple of months with specifically the nursing workforce crisis, partnerships to really aggressively graduate more students and more students of color. So lots of great stuff coming, but today we celebrate the DSW program. I have to give a nod to the hard work that went on. I worked with Jane on that for quite some time, and it was really a thoughtful endeavor. But they launched the program very quickly after you approved it in 2018. It's a summer program that starts in the summer, fall, spring. The students take 6 credits each semester. And they move through in an online program, which was before the pandemic. And we were highly successful. We admitted 18 students with a goal of 15 in year 1. And we graduated 15 of them this past May. And it was a very diverse group of students who graduated. It was just such a moment of great pride. But behind them, cohort 2 came in, cohort 3 came in. We had a little bit of fall off in the immediate summer with cohort 3 because it was right in the middle of the pandemic. People had life events that got in the way. But cohort 4 robustly enrolled, and we had 16 students go from summer into fall. So we have met the enrollment goals with this program. We have also exceeded the budget goals that we had. We held back on some critical hires and made do in the social work department. So the revenue was in year 3 in excess of $800,000, and the expenses were in the 400s. So we had a pretty big gap there. I don't want to have any illusions that we can continue that. We did hold off on 2 key positions that we just can't hold off on any longer. So in the years ahead, we're looking at a budget of still bringing in over $800,000, but having closer to $650,000 in expenses. And that's really, it's 870 actually. So you had that revenue projection and expense projection in your numbers there, but we're just going to have to support this program to keep it thriving. Having as many as 45 doctoral students simultaneously has very intense needs with advising, and we want to make sure this continues to be the kind of program that can be successful. The other thing I will just say is that we are going through our accreditation for our social work program right now. We do that every 7 years. We turned in our self-study December 1st. And now that program is going to start accrediting doctoral programs as well. So we are, ramping up for that, and the staff and faculty have been amazing. So things are great, and I just wanted to bring good news today. If anyone, I didn't go into great detail about the program, but I have had everyone prep me up, and I can answer any questions that you have today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I made an error. I didn't take a motion, so I will do it right now, and then I will see if there are questions. May I have a motion to approve the doctorate at Southern Connecticut State University in social work?
I so move.
Okay. Regent Forth, a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Questions?
I just wanted to pass on a comment. Thank you, because you can't see me clapping, but congratulations on the great work. It's great to see programs succeed and exceed expectations. So thank you.
Yeah, it's wonderful this morning to have two programs that are so successful. It makes a huge difference, and this program is so needed. When you look at what's happening because of COVID, I know someone who's a social worker and is doing most of the work online, and she's completely overworked. I mean, she can't even find time for a personal telephone call. So we need people in this field, and we thank you for this endeavor. Okay. May I have a vote then? All in favor of the motion to approve the social work doctorate at Southern Connecticut State University?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much.
The next item on the agenda is the Cybersecurity Associate Degree Program at Quinebaug Valley Community College on page 90. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
A second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. As you know, there are a large number of program modifications, which we'll get to from Quinebaug. Today is Quinebaug Valley Day, for sure. So, Dr. Gates, will you introduce the actual cybersecurity associate degree?
Quinebaug Valley Community College seeks approval for the continued accreditation of a program in cybersecurity leading to an Associate of Science. The continuing labor market demand in this field is in our region, state, and nationally speaks to and demonstrates the need for citizens in our region to have access to this important programming. Presenting today and speaking to the proposal are Chris Pardon, Associate Professor and Program Coordinator of Computer Science.
Is Chris here?
Is Chris there?
Yes, he is. There's Chris. She's there. Chris?
He's muted.
Okay.
You know, I work in technology and yet it's still...
There's Chris. I'm sorry. Okay.
Hello, everybody. So the initial projections for this program were high. My fault, as the saying goes, shoot for the moon. But with everything that's happened to date, mainly the pandemic, I think in all, the program has done well. We'd like to see greater numbers, and the demand from the labor market in both regional, state, and the national level is high for this program. So I think we will continue to see this program grow.
Okay, are there any questions from board members? Regent Bud?
Yeah. I guess your full-time projection of 105 was based on inclusive, starting with 30, and then I don't have the past projection. Was it adding 30 a year? Is that how you got to your 105? Or
that's correct. Yes. Yes.
What now? Do you think that the program? What do you think now? If you were looking at it, what would be your next projection? Because we see that employment based on the program we just looked at is large out there. Otherwise, students know where the jobs are, from what I gather. So what does an associate's degree give you as a job compared to a bachelor's degree out there today? Can an associate get a job the same as it would, or are these people, the students you have in mind, going to do TAP and go on to bachelor's? What's your thought on that?
My thought is both. Can you get a job with an associate's in cybersecurity? Absolutely. The industry needs bodies. They've somewhat retooled themselves. When I went through my education, the cybersecurity was at the bachelor's level, but we're lacking in the people. So those jobs have kind of retooled, and they're allowing folks to come in at the associate's level. However, you don't just stop there. You have to continue with your education, bachelor's and beyond.
And that's what you're guiding people for, I would assume, in this program.
Yes, ma'am, correct.
And what do you project the future next 3 years, for example, if you were to do it now again? Now we're out of COVID to some extent. What would you project if going forward? Did I see it here? I'm looking for that.
I think it's
This is okay. You don't show. I guess I don't see the enrollment numbers projected. I just see dollars. What are the enrollment number projections?
if you look down below, it's the bottom of page. My document says 96.
I'm on 96 too. Projected numbers of
The bullet
25,
points
30,
down
and
below.
30. Go ahead.
So we use projection numbers of 25, 30, and 35
30.
going forward.
That is much reduced from your initial projection. Tell me
Correct.
why.
Correct. So I would say I made a mistake on my initial projection. Inexperience at the time, and I shot for the moon. If you look at the data from the labor market, there are a ton of jobs available now. We're just not seeing that student influx. I do believe that we're going to see this program continue to grow. Absolutely. It's just, I think my original numbers were off, and I take full responsibility for that.
Oh, I'm not trying to point blame. I'm just curious to know what's coming up, what the future might bring. So you think it's a more conservative view, but still there, still supported.
Yes.
Thanks. Thanks very much. I appreciate your candor. Take care.
No problem.
Other questions? Okay, I will then take a vote on the motion to approve the accreditation of the Cybersecurity Associate in Science at Quinebaug Valley Community College. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. The next items are program modifications, and number 1 through 11, I believe,
Yes.
are at Quinebaug Valley Community College, and they're basically changes in modality for instruction, going from on-ground to hybrid. Let me take them. I think we can vote on these. I think what I would like to do is let's discuss them. Let's have one motion at the end unless someone wants to take an item off, and then we can vote on that separately. Is that okay with everyone?
Sounds good.
Okay, Dr. Gates.
Thank you. I, Chair Harris, am requesting that the hybrid and online modalities be acted upon as as a block.
Okay.
Introduced as a block.
Yep.
These changes will allow for maximum flexibility in scheduling options necessary to market to diverse populations and provide an opportunity to increase enrollment. Presenting the modality changes will be Dr. Karen Hynek, CEO of Quinebaug Valley Community College, who will also then introduce colleagues as needed to comment and answer any additional questions.
Thank you very much, and welcome, Dr. Hynek. I think this is the first time you are before the board, and we appreciate your time this morning. And I will turn the microphone over to you.
Thank you so much. As you can see, we have 11 different certificates and degrees that we are looking to move to online and hybrid so that we can advertise them in that fashion. We are seeing an increase in interest in online and hybrid at our campus, and we also believe that this will help us to grow the adult market in ways that we know we haven't been doing in the last few years at the level we're hoping to do so. There will be no additional cost in doing this, as these programs and certificates and degrees, the courses have been developed as online and hybrid, obviously, during the pandemic. But I'm happy to answer any questions that would be helpful to you.
Are there questions? I guess my only question would be, is since these are going to be hybrid, you still are going to limit the number of students you can draw from out of state, correct? Because they're going to have to take some classes on campus.
Correct.
Is there consideration to making some of these completely online in the future?
The hope is that they'd all be fully online in the future, both fully online and or hybrid, because they are available fully online.
And then in the meantime, you're going to have to sort of work on scheduling. It said there's no additional cost, but you're going to have to work on scheduling so those people that want a fully on-the-ground program can get it. So will you be offering some classes both online and on ground?
Correct. I think over time, we'll be doing more in what's called hybrid flex, but it's a model that's still being developed. We certainly do see the online as an opportunity to grow enrollment at QV, and that's why we're hoping that this motion can be approved, because we think that if we're able to market programs as fully being available online, that will help us to grow enrollment with the adult market.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions? Other questions? Okay, let's take, I need a motion to approve items 1 through 11 on the, under program modifications, Esquimalt Valley Community College. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Regent Bud and Regent Forth. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the motion carries. The next item on the agenda is the modification of the Computer Science Master of Science degree program at Southern Connecticut State University. May I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
A sec, I think, okay, thank you, Regent Bud.
First.
Dr. Gates. Southern Connecticut State University seeks approval for a change in instructional modality, namely the replacement of on-ground with hybrid modality in a program, Computer Science, leading to a Master of Science. Students appreciate the quality of delivery, the flexibility of their online learning experience, while lab-based hardware courses are best delivered on the ground in dedicated on-campus labs. So addressing this proposed change is Dr. Trudy Milburn, who we're happy to see again before us, Associate Vice President for Academic Affairs.
Thank you, Provost Gates and Regent Harris, for the opportunity to bring one at this time, although at your next meeting, you'll see additional changes of modality that complement our current 34 programs that are online or hybrid, including the DSW that you heard about earlier, and EDD. We have 14 MBA online programs, or combined 15 master's programs, 3 grad certificates, 1 post-grad certificate. So this adds to our growing list of online and hybrid changes, and we look forward to answering any questions you might have.
Questions? Seeing none on the screen, let's vote on the motion. All in favor of the motion to approve the modification of the Master of Science in Computer Science at Southern Connecticut State University? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we have 2 new programs. Both of these are at Charter Oak State College. The first one is on page 145 of your agenda, the Cancer Registry Management, a C3 certificate. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Okay, we have a motion from Regent Bud, a second from Regent Forth. Dr. Gates.
Thank you. Charter Oak State College seeks approval for a new program, Cancer Registry Management, leading to a C3 certificate. This certificate addresses an identified need in Connecticut and provides a pathway to either the Bachelor of Science in health information management or healthcare administration at Charter Oak State College. Providing additional information is the relatively new provost, David Ferreira, who will speak to the proposal and introduce colleagues as needed to provide additional comments.
Thank you, Provost Gates, and good morning, Regents. Yeah, actually, today is actually the 6-month anniversary, but in COVID, I believe it's like 5 years now. So we are excited to bring to you these new certificate programs that are, I think, very, very unique. And in a moment, I'll turn it on over to our Director of Health Information Management, Cindy Edgerton. But one thing I do want to kind of highlight with these programs is, some are going to be dedicated towards, a lot of things on ground still with, as far as job placement for these things. But when we take a look over at areas such as cancer registrar, some of these jobs will be able to be done in a telework environment. And so I think that's really exciting when we're trying to look at and obviously recruit students nationally. So some of our programs obviously meeting the workforce demand is number one. But I know in particular, as we bring new programs on in the future, that is going to be one of the factors we're going to look at, because I think it will really help meet our student demand. So with that, I'll turn it on over to Cindy.
Hi there. Good morning, everyone. So just a little brief overview of what we're trying to do in the Health Science Technology Department at Charter Oak is really look at leveraging the courses that we already have and being able to use those in a new way throughout new certificates. So for cancer registry management, we are able to use 4 existing Charter Oak courses. And this one is the biggest one. It's 33 credits. And so there will be 7 new courses. We also are focusing on certificates that the students will have the opportunity to sit for credentialing exams. So we're being very careful in choosing the certificates that we look at so that students can get that credential after their name, which is really important in the healthcare environment. And so this one would definitely fill that need. And this would also be one where we would need to get an external accreditation. And so the curriculum's a little bit prescribed or dictated just as far as what we need to teach and the domains that we need to cover. So that was all taken into consideration as we chose courses that we were going to need to include in this certificate. So any questions? That's kind of my brief overview. Yes.
How?
Okay, are there questions?
Yeah. Question.
Regent Bud?
Yeah. You've done some exploration as to where the jobs are, I take it. Could you describe that a little bit of what you've done to verify that this certificate is going to lead to better employment?
Sure. I've done a lot of networking and talking with the people at the, it's called NCRA. Let me see if I can remember, National Cancer Registry Association. And they are the ones who would accredit this program. They also have their own kind of training program. It's not college credit bearing. And they have put out notices for quite a few years about how much demand there is for cancer registrars and how they're struggling to hire because there's not enough people in this field. There's not enough people with the credential to work in this field. So we've really used them a lot as our guide, and some reports that they have put out as far as shortage of cancer registrars throughout the United States. And then I had conversations with my connections at Yale New Haven Healthcare and then Hartford Healthcare, who verified that as well. And then we just did some searches on Indeed for job openings that you can see on the report, where there are indeed open jobs. Anytime you Google that, you will find. And we are hearing reports that some hospitals have just stopped posting jobs because they're just not getting the people that they need to apply. So those are the ways that we're really hearing that there's a need in this area.
And you compete with the training program of the National Cancer Registry Institute, or whatever their official.
Yeah, a little bit, but it's very different because they're not credit bearing. And so it's an actual credit bearing certificate from a college is looked at a much higher level than the kind of micro training that they do.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and they're actually asking, that organization is asking for colleges to start this program, so.
Yeah, and I will
Other
add,
questions?
yeah, I will add to that one to bounce off what Cindy indicated is obviously with it being in the credit bearing program, you know, in a certificate this large, it'll be financial aid eligible, which will really help. And then also there's not a ton of national competition, so it is a high demand field, but also there's not a lot of market infiltration. So that's where we identified as an area for potential growth.
Thank you.
Oh, one thing I should have said, we're also, when we consider these, we're making sure that they are all stackable or pathways to one of the degrees that we hold.
Good.
So, yeah.
Regent Forth?
No, I just
No,
was
okay.
really glad to hear that they're stackable. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for doing
other
your homework.
questions?
No, I was just going to say thank you for doing your homework. It sounds like a good find for a program that can utilize a lot of what we have and is cost effective in delivering the rest.
Yeah.
Okay. You may have said this. Are there other programs such as this? I think I saw some online across the country.
There are, I wish I had a number for you. There are not many. The closest one that I know of is in Minnesota. And so they're few and far between.
Okay.
Is
Do you
this going to
feel
be
that-
online also?
Say
Will
that again, sorry.
Will this course be online? You probably indicated and I missed it.
Yes, fully online. Everything at Charter Oak is online only.
Oh, this Charter
Right.
Oak, of course,
Yep.
fully online. Sorry.
Problem.
Yeah,
And that's
went
what I
back
was
to it
referring
and I see.
to. Right. That's what I was referring to. There are some other all completely online programs in this field that you'll be competing against, but you think you can do that.
Yes,
Okay.
actually, yeah. To maybe to answer your question is yes. There's not, but as mentioned by Cindy, there's really not many. There's the biggest one I would probably say out there as far as competition is online is the University of Cincinnati does have one, and I believe there's Andrew College that's somewhere. But honestly, so we do build in for a marketing budget because when you do Google Cancer Registrar Program online. There is that University of Cincinnati program that comes on up as a paid ad, but we'll also be doing search engine optimization and digital marketing as part of this program. But the good news about it is, as you see, there's not a lot of competition, so we can actually get a very high score when it does come to market for a relatively inexpensive cost.
Okay. Thank you. Are we ready to vote on the motion? We have a motion before us to approve the C3 certificate in cancer registry management at Charter Oak State College. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We have another program from Charter Oak State College, and that is the Physician Practice Management C2 certificate, which is on page 158. May I have a motion?
I so moved. Second.
Okay. Regent Howry and Regent Budd. Dr. Gates.
Charter Oak State College seeks approval for a new program, Physician Practice Management, leading to the C2 certificate. Employment of medical and health services managers is projected to grow 32% from 2020 to 2030, much faster than the average for all occupations. As with the Cancer Registry Management Certificate, this certificate provides a pathway to either the Bachelor of Science in Health Information Management or Healthcare Administration. At this point, Provost David Ferrer will provide additional comments.
Thank you. Dr.
Thank
Ferrer.
you. And just, really briefly, and I'll turn it back over to Cindy, is that this is a program as well that leads to a certification, and also it's a fairly well-paying job when you take a look at the annual average salary of about $100,000 with a beginning salary around $56,000. So we're excited not only to provide the program, but then also knowing that our students will be able to do very well, as we want to make sure that Charter Oak has the lowest default rate in the state, and we want to keep it that way. Cindy.
Yeah, so a lot of the same things that I just said about Cancer Registry. We really looked to leverage courses that we already had, and this one does this beautifully. But we'll be using 5 existing Charter Oak courses, only having to create 2 new courses. So it really is perfectly stackable to healthcare administration. And we also see this one as being a 2-way pathway, that some students in our master's in healthcare administration may want to add this certificate on to their master's degree as well. So there could be some interest there. It is also, as Dave said, one where there are 2 certifications available for graduates of this program to sit for. One that is a lower level, does not require a degree, and then one that's a higher level that requires the bachelor's degree. So depending on the student and what path they want to take or where they're at in their educational world, they can choose one of those credentials. This, every physician's clinic needs a office manager or a general manager. So there is a lot of job opportunity out there. Again, it's a program. Oh, I did not mention that the Health Information Management program is accredited by an organization called CAHIM. And CAHIM we've met with CAHIM several times, and they are going to start accrediting certificates, and they are willing to work with us to accredit this one. And that will be something brand new for them. And we don't think there's an accreditation for this type of program that exists. So we'll have a little niche being an accredited program once that goes through. It will be will kind of be a beta test for them through this accreditation process. And so they're not going to charge us anything. So that's even a cherry on top. So any questions about this?
Any questions? Anyone? I guess the one question I have, there are other programs like this in the state of Connecticut. In fact, this is, I assume, is quite the same as administrative medical office skills, that we just voted on one at Quinnebog. Is that true, that these are really the same programs?
It will be similar. I think that this one is going to focus a little more on management and supervision. So a little bit of, a little bit of a higher level job would be the focus.
The only reason I ask that is I think a number of community colleges developed this kind of program under some federal grants we had in the health field over the years. And some of the certificate programs did not do that well. So I'm but those may have been on ground, and that may be the reason. But I think that you need to do a lot of marketing to be sure that you do, that this is successful, because there is some competition, not only in Connecticut, but obviously across the country.
Definitely. Dave, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, I think one, having the program, online and obviously we would be able to market there. But I would also say that we have had, discussions too with a lot of the healthcare organizations around the state of Connecticut, and they're I think really excited for this. I'll give an example of where we could potentially, garner a lot of interest. Hartford Healthcare alone has over 1,000 employees over in the revenue generation office area, and that's an entry level job. And so we can actually, even just reach out to those that obviously they declared an area of interest with healthcare type of administration, management. And so we could provide that type of pathway to them as far as, up through, certificate, associates, and into the baccalaureate degree. So, and also obviously with the upcoming retirement, there'll be a lot of, retirements in a lot of different industries. There'll be a lot of opportunities for new office managers.
Thank you. Okay, let's have a vote on the motion to approve the C2 certificate at Charter Oak State College of the Physician Practice Management Program. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. Now, on to, thank you very much and lots of luck, and we appreciate your time this morning. Let's move on to item D, which is the Connecticut State Community College Aligned Degrees and Certificates on page 173. And I think you'll recall we took our first action on approving programs, I believe sometime in the spring. It was, I believe, in criminal justice.
Yes.
And music, I think.
Was it music? I do there were.
No, we did two so
there
far.
were two.
And this is another list of programs this is to make sure they're aligned, so that when we go to NETCHI in the spring, we will have a list of programs that we know across the state. These programs all have been previously accredited, but at different institutions. So, Dr. Gates.
Connecticut State Community College seeks approval of the second set of aligned curriculum for the college. This set of programs and courses represents countless hours of work by community college faculty and a dedicated team of alignment managers. Special recognition goes to Dr. Fran Roselli, Interim Associate Vice President of Academic Programs and Curriculum at Connecticut State Community College, and her team, because it does take a team of alignment managers. Dr. Roselli will introduce the proposal, and I'm sure be very happy to enthusiastically answer any questions.
May I just take a motion first, because I have not done that? May I have a motion to approve the resolution on page 173?
So moved.
Motion?
Second.
Forth, the second. Regent Howery. Okay, thank you. Okay, Dr. Roselli.
Good morning. Thank you, Dr. Gates. It really is my pleasure to present these 24 Connecticut State Community College degrees and certificates for your approval. As a reminder, right, these are aligned versions of existing programs that were previously approved by the board and that are currently being offered and enrolling students at our colleges. The process for aligning and transitioning these programs to Connecticut State has been quite lengthy. As Dr. Gates noted, it's countless hours of work by many faculty members and our small team trying to support them. You can actually see that the flow chart of that process on page 177 of your packet. And also as a reminder, the goal of that process is really to take programs that exist now that have the same name, but often have quite disparate requirements, and courses that have the same name and number, but again, may be quite different in their learning outcomes or even in their prereqs. And to align those to make sure that Connecticut State is offering, programs at each campus that if they have the same name, they have the same requirements, and to allow students to seamlessly move from one campus to another. The specific proposals before you, we've got 24 programs. There are 19 degrees and 5 certificates. 8 of these are offered right now only at a single campus, and the remaining 16 are offered anywhere from 2 to all 12 campuses. We've had in this group probably about 40 some odd faculty members working across these different degree programs. And I will also point out that in the spring, you all actually approved 32 different degrees and certificates. So that was actually an even larger group. So I'm happy to take any questions about this group of 24 programs.
Questions? Hearing none, I guess we're ready to vote on the motion to approve. The actual resolution is on page 173, and the list of programs is follows. The actual is part of that resolution. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. And I want to express the board's appreciation to you and to your team. I know this is very difficult work, especially in the environment we're living in today. And I'm glad to see that you are making very good progress. I know there's a lot more to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda, item E, CSCU, the centers and institutes. It's the Connecticut Center for School Safety and Crisis Preparation at Western Connecticut State University. This is a new center that's being proposed. May I have a motion?
I so move.
Okay. Okay, we have Bud and Porth. Dr. Gates.
Western Connecticut State University seeks approval to establish the Connecticut Center for School Safety and Crisis Preparation. Funded by a Connecticut legislative appropriation, the proposed center will play a major role in the development of an infrastructure that provides training, service, research, and active crisis teams across the state. In my role as provost, I've reviewed this proposal and recommend the establishment of this center. Provost Alexander will speak to the proposal and produce colleagues from Western to elaborate and provide any additional responses to questions.
Thank you, Dr. Gates.
Good.
Good morning, everyone. I am proud to be here today, if not happy that this is a necessary thing. Obviously, the last week is just yet another reminder of how much schools have to engage the question of crisis preparation and safety. It is also the case that the need to prepare for trauma and the responses to that is continuing to grow when we're not just dealing with events like what just occurred in Michigan or what has occurred in our region at Sandy Hook, but also the impact of the last year as we dealt with the mass evacuation of schools and trying to manage that. School districts need support. Building on the great work that Dr. Gabe Lomas has done at our university over the years, doing this pro bono with little donations here and there, we have already been doing this work. But in the last year, with some great conversations with some of our representatives, we are happy now to have funding at the state level for this. And we are ready to get going on making this broader in terms of the support across the state of Connecticut and really properly fund the initiatives that need to occur. I have with me Dr. Lomas today to tell you a little bit about the work that has already taken place and then to answer questions about the future of this center. Okay.
Thank you, Provost Alexander, and I appreciate this opportunity to speak to the regents. I guess I'll take about 90 seconds just to kind of review what this proposal is about. I moved here from Texas in 2009, where I had significant training in school crisis management. And I took a position as a professor, a young professor in the counseling department, the counseling program. You can see by my gray hair, I'm an old professor now. So, but in those first few years, I was doing some training already with the local schools. And I was noticing this deficit, that it was very different from other states where I had experience. And I began to do some of that work. And then the shootings at Sandy Hook Elementary, devastated our community. And wanting to stay in my lane, I tried to create an infrastructure in the western part of the state, which I was very successful in. Even just earlier this week, we had another meeting with 13 school districts that meet with me monthly. My work has been recognized by many in the state, including collaborations we have with the Department of Education, Emergency Management, DCF, DEMAS, and so on. When I have a meeting, all of these people, the stakeholders, show up at the meeting. And so everybody is behind me. We're very committed to setting up this infrastructure. So the funding that we have in the center will codify it, and we'll start to grow this infrastructure where we'll have a center at the university, and we will have some staff at the RESCs, the Regional Education Service Centers around the state, that will work with every single school. It's the way I see it is it's an equity and social justice kind of picture. Right now, the picture is that the schools with more income, more money, more resources get the crisis management that they need, and those with less do not. And so this will level the playing field, because everybody will have access to this the best training that the state can offer. So I'll pause there and just take any questions from you all.
Questions? I first want to congratulate you for I think you have a $3 million grant from the, you're going to be funded by the Connecticut General Assembly, is that correct?
I believe it's 2 million at this point, but opportunities to continue.
Two, yes, okay. Okay. I guess the question is, how are you going to sustain this after the 2 years?
So we are already in the process, and Gabe has been busy hiring an executive director, and their first job is not just to set things up, but to begin the path to continuous funding. We understand that we will continue to work with the state. There are actually federal grants that can be leveraged for this, and local philanthropists who have been interested in this question. So we believe that there's multiple resources that we can tap into, but it will be that director's task to build that funding pipeline.
Thank you. Regent Budd?
Yeah, I've read the material, and I see that you've gathered small donations in the past. And give me an idea of how much you raised in the past for this.
Gabe?
Well, you know what? The truth is that I have been very successful at receiving large grants as well. So what I typically do, I've received some major grants from HRSA. So what I'll do is I'll set those up as trauma training, crisis training for schools, and I train students, and I bring in other community stakeholders to the same trainings. And so it's sort of like being able to do a 2-for-1. So it's really hard to say I've gotten funding specifically for this task, because I'm using money for students and for the university to also benefit the community. So I mean, in total, I've received over $6 million in grants over the past 12 years of my career, mostly in the past 5 years of my career.
That leads me to the next, well, a couple of questions. The regional crisis training and regional crisis team, how is the institute, if we approve this institute, to what extent is is it different that from expanding just the regional crisis training? When I say regional, I want to say Connecticut, all state Connecticut. I mean, you could expand, from what I read, the training program to the rest of the state of Connecticut.
Regent Budd, that is exactly the plan. we are scaling up to do
Right,
the
but do we need an institute authorization for that, or can you just apply the grant you got from the state to this and then apply again for a further grant from the state to continue that kind of training? I guess I don't understand. You didn't have to come to us for the regional training. So what is the differentiator? What are we approving here that's different from just expanding your existing program? And the other question I have, I understand that Dr. Lomas is now going to have a different position out of this program. And so we don't know who and what kind of experience will come. I think that obviously your personal people donate to someone who is an inspirational leader. And I'm prejudiced in that respect. I'm sure you're a very good inspirational leader, and that's why you've succeeded. And I don't know who the next person is going to be. So it would seem to me, given the state application of $2 million, that maybe we should just expand this program and see who the next leader is going to be, and then see if that then warrants an institute. So my real question is, what am I voting for?
Well, I'll respond unless you'd like to, Provost.
Go ahead, Gabe.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm willing to stay at Western as an advisor to the center as long as the provost will have me, and the institute, the institute of, will have me. But this is work that I'm passionate about and that I love. So my face will always be there if my face is welcome there. So you mentioned specifically the crisis team work. That's not the institute. That is one of the objectives of the institute. So, or the center is going to have multiple objectives, and really having a center will allow us to have an engine for this. And so that the state recognizes that there's employees. Like let me give you a quick example. When there is a death of a teacher, death of a student, everybody's really up in arms, and so they don't know what to do because it's an uncommon experience. And so they will call me, and I'll provide consultation, and I may deploy a mutual aid team so other people will help them. So, but I'm doing that as service. That's a part-time role for me that I receive no compensation for, and I'm happy to do it as long as I'm around. Well, dedicating employees to that really is what's needed. It needs to have a full-time staff, and we need to be able to place staff in other parts of the state. And once the schools begin to recognize the benefit, I think they're going to be fighting for the maintenance of the center. So I don't think that the funding for this is really going to be in jeopardy down the road. But what we need to do is get this rolling soon so that the schools recognize the value of it, and then we have superintendents all over the state saying this center must continue on. So that's my short answer. I'll let Provost Alexander add to that if she'd like.
Sure. I would like to build on that. You will see that in the proposal, one of the areas that would not have been done with just expanding those centers is actually the beginning of scholarship on this, right? That there's a whole area of developing expertise and research that we hope will grow out of this, and that builds the academic component in addition to the mutual aid that has been going on. Given the scale of traumatic events, this is an important area to conduct research in. Now, I will agree, Regent Budd, that Gabe is going to be hard to replace. Luckily, he has been willing to stay on as part of this center, right? And we will continue to do that. But we are already identifying faculty in our mental health programs that will be part of the production of research, and we hope that they will combine across the state in scholarship. For me, this is a true center. It's not a one-off job. It's not a particular focus of one faculty member. It's the entire state of Connecticut wanting to have resources around how do we not only prepare for these events, but how do we work to prevent them, and what else do we need to know? And that is where I think it moves from the regional things to an actual center. The final thing I wanted to say is I think that the way to attract fundings is to have that official status. That even though Gabe may be a charismatic person who has brought this here, having it be an official state recognized location where this work goes on will help us to build the funding streams. And that is why we think it needs to be a center. I'm sorry, we can't hear you. There you go.
Aviva, you're on mute if you want. I think you're talking.
I muted because the phone was ringing.
Okay, okay.
Can I ask one more question here?
Sure.
The federal government has done some research on this from what I see in your report. I don't know anything independently from what I've read. And you give a very good presentation, which is really quite educational. They've done an enormous amount, from what I can see, of research, and they have guidelines as to what should be done. To what extent are they continuing this, that the Institute is doing replication of their research? Because their funding, obviously, for this kind of research is going to be more extensive than any independent state can do. Can you give us a little background on that and why the Institute isn't necessarily, assuming it continues, duplicating that? Or how do you differentiate? And I know you're using the federal material quite extensively. That obviously is a great resource.
Gabe, I'll let you answer that one, please.
Yeah, sure. Well, that is the most exciting part to me. The fact that the federal government sees this as a priority means that they're going to continue to fund it. In fact, just last year there was some funding available, and I missed the deadline. And I was a little worried that if I had applied anyway, they would not see us as qualified because we don't have a center. So once we establish the center, we will have that engine. We will be clearly qualified to fight for that funding. Now, right now, school districts, state governments, organizations that are public can access that funding. And I think that the funding mechanisms are going to grow much more rapidly, and that we will be able to capture some of that. Now, and one of the other things you commented about was the research and it being national. I mean, from my experience working in schools in Texas and Connecticut, and then being a consultant in other states in Virginia and Colorado, the schools are just vastly different in the way that they operate. And so I think that the research that this center will do in Connecticut will be specific to Connecticut, and superintendents and school safety experts will say, this works this way in Connecticut, and it may work in a similar way, but slightly different in Virginia. So I think that, that it is important to have very targeted research and keep it up to date. So, oftentimes some of the studies that I cited in the material I gave you were from the Joint Task Force and CIA, FBI, DOE.
Right.
Some of those are 10, 15 years old, but we at the center, we hope to keep this going, at a pretty good clip.
Thank you. That's important to me because the material looked very comprehensive, but as you're saying, it's not necessarily directed towards what you want to know. Interesting. Thank you very much. That was very helpful.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
I do.
Oh,
Can I ask,
yes?
make two quick observations, please? And really, part of it's a follow-up to Regent Budd's comments. The long-term funding sustainability is honestly, it's a concern to me. And my one observation or piece of advice is, if it's possible to have a longer-term plan, not based on competitive grants, one-off grants, but on regular contracted services you could provide to help prepare school districts or whomever. And maybe you're already contemplating that, but that's one observation. And the second thing I wanted to say is the regional nature of this. It would be good to try to work with the councils of governments too, not only the RESCs, but the councils of governments where police chiefs and other public safety personnel come together to collaborate on some of the same type of preparation, not only focused on schools, but on general preparation within a region. So I'll stop there. Thanks.
So I'd like to just speak to the long-term funding, and then if Gabe would like to talk about the councils of governance a little bit. I just want to say I agree with you. I am ever concerned with sustainability of our initiatives at WCSU. And when we get our our first director on board, we will look through all of those possible opportunities. But I also want to note that even within this proposal, we understand that if we don't do that properly, this will not be renewed as a center, right? So we are fully cognizant of that, and we are looking for whatever blend of funding resources we can achieve to keep it sustainable. So I hear you loud and clear. Gabe, would you like to speak to the other piece?
Sure, sure. I mean, I'm not really too familiar with the councils of governments, but I would be happy to, to address it in globally, like in general. When one of the things that I always tell superintendents is you can't, build a plane while you're flying it. So it takes a lot of preparation in advance to have an appropriate response. And that usually means building relationships. So that, I serve on multiple committees with DCF, DEMAS, and I know these stakeholders and they know me. And so we extend trust to each other. And so they'll tell me, hey, Gabe, you need to serve on this committee. You need to meet these people and become part of this team. So I have no doubt that the councils of governments that you mentioned will be part of that network once we get this, approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Let's take a vote. We're going to be voting on the establishment of the consent approval, actually, of the Connecticut Center for School Safety and Crisis Preparation at Western Connecticut State University. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. I agree with the opening statement. It's really unfortunate that we have to do this. And we just heard a few days ago about a new incident and of violence at a high school. And we know that it's something we're going to have to keep preparing for. The interesting thing was in that situation, the teachers were prepared, and I think they ultimately saved lives, and that's what we have to keep on doing. And so I thank you for bringing this forward, and good luck. And it will come back to the board in 7 years, is it?
Yes.
5 years. 5 years? 5 years. 5 years. 5 years. So we'll be able to see at that point what the funding issues are, et cetera. So thank you again. We appreciate your work on this. Okay, next item on the agenda, item F, is the Nexus degree. And we have Jane Gates to thank for bringing this forward. And I would just like to make a few comments about this degree because I didn't understand it at first. And it's interesting that after I've done some reading, I found out this is the first new degree in higher education since 1890. So we really are on the, we're going to be new innovators and discoverers, et cetera. The other thing I think that's important to note is it's going to be up to the institutions to determine whether they want to offer this and how they structure it. What we're doing today is providing the framework, the foundation, the approval to have this happen. As you read, the University System of Georgia was the first institution or set of institutions to have a Nexus degree, and they actually had graduates from this program, the first graduates at Columbia State University in December 2020. What it allows us to do is both meet student needs and industry needs and answer one of Aviva's questions always, are there jobs? And this will be focused on both student learning and jobs. I'll have other comments to make, but I will let Dr. Gates say more about the program and why she feels this is so important. But first I will ask for a motion. So that I hope we, Aviva, you approve the motion? Okay, and Richard Porth. Thank you. Dr. Gates.
Thank you so much, Dr. Harris. When I first became aware of the Nexus degree, I think Ken as well, we were attending a remote conference there for Lumina Foundation. And I heard all of this conversation about how we need to innovate, how many of our institutions need to become more flexible, and definitely how we need to align more closely those degrees that we offer with major industry. And the University System of Georgia, Chancellor, and others were there, spoke to this degree, and I'm thinking this is a wonderful degree that I would like to introduce and receive approval to offer in the great state of Connecticut. And so this program does several things there. It links the academic program with industry experts as a requirement. It also provides, and it's something very interesting here, it's different from the traditional associate degree in that it offers 300 and 400 level courses, which means that whether if it's a community college, the community college will work with either a college or a university. And so that also provides an opportunity to introduce our students in these specific areas of high demand to collegiate life. And also not only in a community college, but the universities and the colleges as well. So I was just so very enthusiastic about it. It also aligns very closely with the governor's demand, and most especially with the mission of the Connecticut State Colleges and Universities goal. One of the goals, innovation. We must become more agile. We must be able to respond more quickly to industry needs. And this was just a perfect opportunity for those in universities or colleges who choose to do so, to offer the Nexus degree. And of course, Nexus means linking. So we're linking that area there with what we would ordinarily offer in general ed with industry needs. And I was just very excited about it. Spoke to several of the colleagues. Ken, when I consulted, we talked about it, and definitely Dr. Harris, and with President Chang to say, look, this is a phenomenal opportunity for us, and for those opportunities, an opportunity for our university and colleges and college in general, whether it's charter oak college and community colleges. So that ends my spiel on this, guys, and I am clearly very excited and about the opportunity to present a new credential. And by the way, not that we want to be always competitive, it will be the first of its kind in the state of Connecticut to be offered by the CSCU system. Thank you.
Questions? I'm sure there are some. Regent Bud.
I just wondered, how did Georgia, what was the success rate and how long was it? What are the details of the experiment? I take it's not an experiment in Georgia, but they instituted
the details. Thank you. The details were very similar to the path I followed here, in that they initially had to receive just an approval from as we have, the New England, their SACs, their regional accreditor, because this is definitely a different degree program. We have received approval from the New England Commission for Higher Education. I spoke to Dr. Pat O'Brien, who was very excited about this and the opportunity, she says, it provides for students. So what happened in the USG system, the discipline faculty were the ones who decided which of the discipline areas would offer this degree, but they had to be aligned with high demand initiatives. You couldn't just say, and I'm sorry if someone has a degree in English, we're going to offer this in English. That would not have gone over. So they were very clearly outlined high demand areas where faculty then decided, yes, we want to offer this new degree. And the other advantage, I think, there that they said that was really advantageous was offering that experiential learning, that internship in the industry. They have companies, corporations, who have offered to pay students to complete those degrees, and students are able to earn dollars while just getting the experience in the industry in Georgia. So they were looking at cybersecurity in one of the areas. They've also looked at One of the programs I think was in the theater industry where people have to learn how experts are able to acquire that experience when they're putting on performance. So there are different areas in the state, but specifically cybersecurity was one of the big ones. And companies who are very much desperately interested in increasing the number of individuals with those credentials in the identified areas in the state of Connecticut were the ones to come to the table and build the curriculum with the faculty. It's in concert with faculty. And those investments were made by, so I would say, in all, when I talked to the provost at the USG system, probably 1 year in actually getting this out, getting a board approval first, and actually getting the programs in place. Once all of the institutions, used to be 35 now in the system, now I think 25 or something there as a result of consolidation. So it took them about a year to get this out to their campuses. There also is an application that must be submitted just as all new programs are moved forward, and it must be approved by the Board of Regents as it goes through the curricular processes, the same as they would go if it were any other new program. So it would follow the same process. So in that sense, that adds not a lot of time, but then of course the majority of the time was spent in actually developing the program on the campuses in concert with the industry aligned with the state's high demand areas. I hope that sort of gets, but it's a very similar process, but it's getting the industry partners on board at the outset of the program, developing the programs.
I guess my question is more, what's their status today? Did they have enrollment in these programs or no?
Oh, yes. They not only have enrollment, they're growing. They've had graduates from these programs. I'm sorry, Regent, but I misunderstood your question.
That's
I
all
thought
right.
you wanted
That's all
all
right.
the behind the scenes. Okay.
And it's a popular program. Your provost recommended that program to you, I assume.
Well, actually, we talked about all of the programs. She did not recommend any specific one.
I don't mean the program, the degree. The degree. I don't mean the program. I mean the degree.
Yes.
Thank you.
Lumina. It was the Lumina National Lumina Partners who actually where this was discussed. And yes, and I had a very in-depth conversation with the provost and the USG system regarding it. So they have been very successful.
The first graduates were actually in film production, and they have the areas they're looking at are aerospace, blockchain, cybersecurity, fintech, health informatics, information tech, logistics and supply chain management, and mechatronics. I guess that's how you pronounce it, mechatronics.
Sounds good to me.
So those are the areas that at this point they're looking at, but they did have graduates from one in 2020 already.
Good, thank you.
Other questions? And then this will take planning and work by our institutions. They have to engage in wanting to do this. It's not going to be imposed, but our approval hopefully gives the impetus for institutions to begin looking at this and seeing if they can make that connection with the business or industry that needs people and develops a program. And it also can fit into existing degree programs as well. It doesn't have to be a standalone. It could be, again, a ladder to the bachelor's degree, et cetera. Other questions? And let's take a vote on approval. All in favor of approving the Nexus degree? What degree?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you very much. Okay, let's go on to the completion of our agenda. We have a few more items. Let me get back to my actual agenda here. The next, we have a bunch of information items, and we do want to have updates on the CCS 101 update. That's Connecticut State College 101, right? Okay. Who wants to introduce that?
Oh, very good. I would say that today, the staff from Connecticut State Community College will provide a progress report. Michael Stepanowicz will provide an overview and introduce colleagues as needed to speak to CCS 101, College and Career Success, to bring us up to date on where we are. Michael?
Thank you, Michael.
Hi, good morning, everybody. And I just want to make sure that we didn't miss the CSCU sabbatical leaves.
Right.
I don't think we didn't have to act on those.
Okay.
And there was no one here to do a presentation, so they're
Good.
approved. It's for our information, and that's all. These are the two items that, at the end, that we do have someone, we do want to hear from the experts again on this and what's happening.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you, Michael.
I just didn't want to jump the line at all. So, hi, everybody. It's great to see folks, some folks in person and some folks online. So I have two very brief updates to give. One is on the CCS 101 College and Career Success course and where we stand. And the other is on Connecticut State Community College Academic and Student Affairs Policy. So the CCS 101 College and Career Success, I'll just remind those, because I know we have some new regents and some guests at the meeting, that the board did pass a policy that all students at Connecticut State will take the CCS 101 College and Career Success course as part of their program. It can be part of the general education core, or it can be part of the program, but all students would take that. This was an initiative that came out of the Guided Pathways work that really focused that for students to succeed, it's really important that they have a college and career plan, an academic plan, a financial plan, and a career plan. And our colleges, the 12 community colleges, have been teaching different versions of this course over a number of years. I won't say forever, but for quite a while. We've had 1 credit versions and 3 credit versions. Often it's called first year experience, or FYE. Under the Guided Pathways work in the past few years, a working group was developed of folks who have taught that course and folks who administer that course. And they developed a common course with common learning outcomes. And the board did approve a policy that course would do a few things. 1, that it would be required for all students. 2, that it would meet a gen ed category requirement. So it would meet one of our gen ed categories. And then 3, that it would also meet the diversity requirement, which was approved as part of the gen ed core. I just wanted to update everyone on where we stand. Mid-year, we brought in an interim director of college and career success, or FYE. Her name is Jill Rushbrook. She was a former director of counseling and advising at Nantucket. So she's been on since July, and she has kind of morphed the working group that was under Guided Pathways to a more formal advisory council, CCS Advisory Council. And we have members from each of our 12 colleges serving on that council. They are folks who either coordinate the course at their college. Often they also teach the course. They have some connection to the course. We also have ex officio members like the Director of Professional Development, Institutional Research, and we also have the Interim Associate Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion. That group has been meeting monthly. So that group did make a recommendation that the CCS 101 course will meet the continued learning information literacy gen ed category outcomes. So that's how it will fit in the gen ed core. It also, the group met to discuss that the course will meet the first outcome of the diversity requirement at an introductory level. And they are working with the Diversity and Equity Inclusion Council as those outcomes are being finalized. The diversity outcomes are not finalized yet. We're going through a review period this semester. They have their first professional learning event on first year in college success on November 12th. Over 75 participants were involved virtually. It was a great success. We actually built upon the strength we have in our system. So we have folks who have been teaching the course, designing the course, working with the course, all present virtually. And we got very good feedback on that. The group has, we've started gathering data on how many sections of the course will be needed when we go full scale in fall of 2023. So that's important. We've been working with IR. And then we've done some work creating some documents for the folks who are aligning curriculum related to the course, and also building an instructor repository and kind of a master course shell in Blackboard. So Jill has really been working really strongly on this. We partner through our Success Center with a national expert, Christine Harrington, who helped develop the course with us and has helped develop our policy. And then Jill has also reached out to a lot of stakeholders. Normally she'd be here to present this, but she's actually teaching a section of the course this morning online, so she wasn't able to join us. So just some future plans with the course. We will need to renumber it to fit our new course numbering scheme for the new college. So we may come forward to just do a minor revision to the policy to include the correct numbers. They're finalizing the final course template, finalizing learning objectives and instructional units and those types of things. Again, it's all the faculty teaching the course who are doing this work. Jill has formed some subcommittees within the advisory council, one on curriculum development, one on policy clarification and implementation, one on professional development, one on the quality of instruction, and one on data and student success. So really bringing us forward from the concept of a policy and a requirement to implementation. And what you'll be working on in the spring semester will be the committee, the advisory council will be working on a common job description for those folks teaching the course. She'll be meeting with each college, with the dean at each college, as well as the FYE or CCS coordinator at each college to kind of assess where they are, how many sections are currently being offered, how many sections they may need to offer in the fall of 23, and talk about a plan of how to get kind of from here to there. And then also continuing to make sure that the CCS 101 fits within the new guided pathways advising structure and within all of our overall guided pathways work as well. So that's my CCS 101 update. I'm really thrilled that Jill has been a longtime proponent of the course and has taught the course for many years. And I'm really thrilled she agreed to take on this interim role and lead us forward. Are there any questions from the regions?
You're anticipating you'll begin offering this in the fall of 2023, is that?
Yeah, that's a great question, Regent Harris. Some colleges have actually started offering a version of this course. Manchester, for instance, took the version that the Guided Pathways Working Group had developed and actually had it approved locally at Manchester Community College. And they're offering it actually now. They're piloting the course now in the fall, and they'll be offering it again in the spring. So some colleges are starting to do that. The policy does not require that every student take the course until fall of 23 at the new single Connecticut State Community College. But some of our colleges require a course like this or a similar course, either in certain programs like general studies or liberal arts. Tunxus Community College has had a requirement that all students take a version of this course for a while in all programs. So we're kind of slowly starting to roll it out, piloting learning outcomes, piloting sample assignments, those types of things. But the policy required that we fully implement with the new college in fall of 23.
Thank you. Thank
Sure.
you.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, other questions? The next item, Michael, are you going to talk about that?
I am. You're not done with me
The
quite yet.
Okay.
The next item, it relates to academic and student affairs policy. And I think that the committee may remember that we did a full policy audit as part of our alignment work and consolidation work over the past year and a half, 2 years. And we've been working on updating policies and specifically procedures for the one college. Basically, this is an item that NECHI is concerned with, is how will we have aligned policies and procedures now that we will be one college. There are really two types of documents that affect policy for the colleges. One is the work that this board has been doing, the full board, since the merger in 2011. And then the previous Board of Trustees policy manual, right, which was up until 2011. So what we've done is we've gone through that, we've done an audit, we've looked at the policies and procedures listed in all of the catalogs at all of the colleges. And what we found is that actually a lot of the policy, especially the policy that was in the old BOT manual, was a combination of policy and procedure. And I think that was because the Board of Trustees and now the current board wanted all the colleges following, right, very specific procedures so that we didn't have discrepancies between different colleges. And the only way to really do that, to have common procedure, was to encapsulate that within the policy. So when we look at some policies for things like Fresh Start, which is kind of an academic amnesty, a restart policy, there were some very specific items in there that were listed as part of the policy. Because we're going to be one college, we don't really need that procedure to be in the policy anymore. We will have a common procedure coming from Connecticut State. So what we've done is we've taken a look at all of the policies, and there are two things that need to happen. One is certainly there's lots of policies that need revision of language because they refer to 12 colleges, and we will only have one college. So we need to just do some language changes, and those will be presented and brought to you and to the board, the full board. We're targeting a February of 2022, so at the next set of meetings. But the second step would be revising policies beyond language changes to strip out some of the procedures and give authority to the single college to implement the procedure. So an example of this might be the Dean's List eligibility. And currently, if a student gets a W, if they withdraw from a course, they are not eligible to be on the Dean's List. We've worked with a subcommittee of our community college academic deans, and we've worked with the full council of the academic deans, and they're recommending a change to that so that students who have a W may be considered for Dean's List. Something like that, which is a change in policy, we would bring forward to the ASA committee and then to the full board. Obviously, any substantive change of policy. But there are other items that are, for instance, an academic appeal. If a student wishes to appeal a grade, the procedure for doing that, who they go to talk to, what types of paperwork, may not need to be in the new revised policy. The policy should certainly talk about that there should be a process for academic appeals, that there should be specific deadlines for responses when students apply for academic appeals, and those are in current policy. We would not change those items. But the actual procedure of who the student goes to, we're suggesting that may not need to be part of the detailed policy going forward. So that's the work that we've been doing. I will say, with all the work we have going, the primary goal we have is to don't change what isn't broken. And, you know, we want also to wait until there's a permanent governance structure for the single college for any substantive changes that come forward. We'd like the deans to make a recommendation. We'd like that to go to groups like, you know, college senates and faculty councils for their input and feedback. And then we would bring forward, again, any policy change through the appropriate channel. So that's a brief update. I wanted to kind of just share with you that update because we do reference it in the NECHI substantive change up document, which will be going out to NECHI in January. And I wanted people to be aware of kind of this division of policy and procedure. And also give you a heads up that some things will be coming forward at the next round of meetings in February. That was a lot, so I'm happy to pause and take questions.
Okay. Any questions?
No.
I think this is right, something that the board will talk about again, I believe in February, as you just said. I know that there is a timeline because of the NECHI report, and it's important to make sure that we have consistent policy across the new college. I've had conversations with Ken about this, and I think the important thing is to just make sure that the system office is involved in this process constantly so there can be decisions as to what goes to the board and what doesn't have to go to the board. I mean, I think that's the one thing that concerns me. I just want to make sure that the provost is involved in reviewing this and making decisions. So, we have, our official agenda is over, but we have an unofficial agenda, so I do not want anyone that's on the line right now to get off, because this is really an important day that I didn't realize was going to be today, because I know we have a board meeting coming up. But Dr. Gates, this is her last meeting of the ASA, and she will not be at the board meeting.
Oh, dear.
So this is a formal farewell, and I'm sorry it's not, we can't have a big party. We really have to have a big party. But we have some, Jane is surprised, because I don't know if you probably can't see. We have a bunch of guests that just arrived, and these are her family.
Oh,
so
dear.
We want to make some formal comments. And the first thing I do want to do is I want to read a letter from President Terence Chang to Dr. Gates. Okay. And I will read that. Dear Dr. Gates, as president of the Connecticut State Colleges and University, it is my sincere pleasure and great privilege to bestow upon you the title of Emeritus Provost and Senior Vice President for Academic and Student Affairs with all associated rights and privileges. It is with deep appreciation and respect for your distinguished leadership that I confer this recognition. Not only have you served as Provost of CSCU since 2016, but your service also includes your exceptional leadership as Provost of Western Connecticut State University from 2011 to 2016. Emeritus status is an honor of the highest order and reserved for those whose service is exemplary. Dr. Gates, your more than 10 years of academic leadership in Connecticut certainly places you in this category. You have served as a role model and a mentor for countless students, faculty, and staff, and as a dedicated partner with the Regents, campus leaders, and the CSCU system office team. The positive influence you have had on so many individuals will be remembered and treasured long after your retirement from CSCU. Congratulations and best wishes to you for many years of a healthy and happy retirement. Sincerely, Terence Chang. few people here today who want to make comments, including me, but I'm going to turn to two people who have worked very closely with Dr. Gates. First, I would like, I don't know who should be first. I'll call on Dr. Pritchard for a minute because she was here in this position for a while, and
I promise, Alice Pritchard, I promise to be very brief, but Jane, just so thankful for our years together here, and so very glad that along with others, I got to be on the Jane train this whole time, because it's been challenging and exhausting and liberating, and all of it at your side has been absolutely wonderful. So,
Thank
Jane
you.
Train.
Thank you.
I stole Ken's line.
Ken.
You know, I'd like to say I'm happy to make these remarks, but it's a little more bittersweet than happy. Somebody reminded me this morning, Jane, that you're a rock star, and I guess I'd say that's enough, but I'm just going to make a couple of specific comments because we work so closely. And the things, Jane, you bring to this office are just incredible. And then this morning we saw an example with the Nexus degree, your commitment to innovation. You certainly keep us on our toes, or have kept us on our toes with, what about this idea? And so many things have come out of those moments when you come to us with innovation. There are many things that you do. I just want to cover a couple. I mean, one of the things that's always amazed me is when we're in meetings and there's a complex conversation going on and I'm sitting there trying to sort through it. You're always there, already have thought through it, you've got a response, and you move us forward. I don't know how you do that. I'm not sure that's rock star. That may be superhero more than rock star. I want to say something a little bit about your legacy, because I think here it's an enormous legacy. We've been merged as a system for about 10 years. First 5 years or so, there was a lot of sort of floating around in exactly what the Division of Academic and Student Affairs would be. You've really established this office. Whatever happens going forward, it will always be built on the foundation of your 5 years here and really establishing what we do. And the emeritus status is important, and I think it reflects that your legacy will continue no matter where we lead. And then I just want to turn to, and this picks up on something in the letter that Terence wrote, President Chang wrote. This is really more on a personal level. I have learned a great deal from you, from your rock star example and your just your mentorship, and I've really appreciated that. You know, I have the daunting task of following you. And I don't think I would be even near ready for it if it wasn't for your example, Jane, and I appreciate that. So I'll just end by saying we all know you're going to continue to be a rock star, and I personally wish you the best on wherever the tour takes you next. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you.
And I have to, you have to give me a minute.
Yes.
Then you can respond.
Okay.
This is my last meeting too of the ASA, so
yeah.
I mean it's been a real amazing 5 years to have Jane to work with as we did things together in the whole academic affairs meeting agenda. I've known her since I actually joined the Board of Regents, because when the board was established, it's just about the time that you started at Western. So we really kind of worked together for the whole 10 years, but I really got to know Jane in the last 5. And I just want to quickly explain some of the things that I feel are so important about her, and I might be repeating some of the things Ken said, because obviously it's reality. It's Jane. First of all, your knowledge. Your entire career has been spent in higher education, and Jane really understands the academy and how it works, and she shares that knowledge, not only in Connecticut, but she listens to what's happening across the country. She brings that back to the office, and it influences all of our work, and I think that is particularly important. You know she's committed. Her real commitment is to students. And every decision she makes, she really understands how that will affect students, and constantly reminds me and I'm sure members of her team about that. what's been said already is really important, and that is you feel you have a responsibility to mentor others. And Jane knows that others mentored her and helped her climb that ladder of success. And there's so many people that forget that you don't get anywhere alone. Other people help get you someplace. Jane knows that, and she offers a hand to others to help them move ahead up that next rung of the ladder. And there are countless people that understand that and appreciate all of your effort. Even when Jane's busy, she doesn't hesitate to help people. To this day, I know that she has been counseling and mentoring others so that they can advance. Patience. Jane has patience. I don't know what's inside of her. It may not show inside, but when we're dealing with difficult situations, and everyone knows there have been plenty of them during the last 5 years, she doesn't express anger outwardly. She is very patient and helps everyone else calm down and take us the next step ahead. And that is tremendously important. The other thing about Jane that she has taught me is she really lives diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's not just, she doesn't just pay mouth service or lip service to that. It's really part of your life, and you have taught others the importance of that in everything we do. And there was an example of that even this morning when we were talking about the KPIs, of how important it is constantly to remember the kind of society we live in, the kind of society we want to live in, where everyone has an opportunity to move ahead. Innovation, we talked about that. And to me, that is one of the most important things in higher education today. We can't be stale. We can't do everything the way we always did it. We have to remember tradition. Tradition is important. We're building on a foundation of what higher education is in this country. But we have to be flexible. We have to change. We have to realize that if we want more people to be educated, we can't do it exactly the way we've done it for hundreds of years in this country. Toni Morrison said, as you enter positions of trust and power, dream a little before you think. Jane is both a dreamer and a thinker. And Jane, I will miss your laugh. I will miss your smile. I will miss your wardrobe. I will miss all of these things. And actually, I'm probably happy that this is my last meeting too, because then I won't have to get used to someone else. Although Ken, you and I have worked together for the last few years. I wish you only the best as you enter this new phase of your life. And now you can talk.
Oh, well, thank you. It is very difficult that I find myself speechless. You know?
Look at the audience you have. That's incredible.
When I saw all of my loved ones and relatives come in, I was just speechless. But I want to say that this has been singularly the most rewarding career path that I've chosen and lived, and particularly the last 5 years. I've said to Dr. Harris, working with her mentorship has been absolutely invaluable, and all the fantastic people here at the CSCU system, especially the other regents, I mean, who give their lives, dedicate their lives, volunteer time to ensure quality learning for all of our students. So, and I love faculty, staff, students. I've just loved my career. And I think it really, I hope it shows. So I am just so appreciative of all the comments. I mean, really, I could not believe. I was speechless looking at it. And that is a tough thing to do. But I want to also say that in my exiting here, as I retire to the next career phase, I will always have, now that I'm emeritus here, contact information for CSCU in case you need to call me up or more likely text. Thank you so very much. This is so wonderful and unexpected. Thank you. Thank all of you.
If there's anyone who wants to make a comment, I'm not compelling you to do that. Okay, Kalena, is it? Okay, and then we're next, okay.
Oh. My niece out of Los Angeles.
Good afternoon. Hi, Auntie.
Hi there.
Hi. So we first want to thank all of you just for everything that you've provided here, just your welcoming of Dr. Jane Gates. She is known to all of us, though, as Auntie Sister. I want to let you know that there are 3 generations here today. We have flown from everywhere to be here with our legacy. And so you guys know her on one side, but this is her other side. And she has been one of my personal mentors. And just know that she keeps us on our toes. So everything that you see here, it is triple in our family. As a result of that, I would like for her twin sister to stand. And then her twin sister's legacies, we have with me my cousins, Tanisha and Dante. Both are engineers, accountants. Just know that we are all quite educated because it is expected, okay, from Dr. Jane Gates. And so then there is myself, and I am the next generation. I'm their sister's child, her oldest niece. And then my children are here, which is 3rd generation. I have Michael, my oldest son, his wife, Angel, and my baby girl and Dr. Jane Gates' goddaughter, Ariana Marie. So, Auntie, we love you. There is no one that we would have flown from Los Angeles, California in 80-degree weather, okay, or in December, okay, than for anyone other than Dr. Jane Gates. You have been a mentor. You have been a second mommy for me. You have been an auntie godmother for my children. We absolutely love you. You have no idea how proud we are of you. All of the milestones, in particular for myself, you know, I've had my mom, my grandmother, and then there's always been you.
Yes.
And so I want to say to you, your legacy, as wonderful as it is here in Connecticut and in Arkansas before now, your legacy in this family is what will stand for generations to come.
Oh, thank you. Wonderful.
And
thank you, Ellen.
And also, because I have to do this because of the Divine Nine. So on behalf, too, of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, many of you guys know our Vice President, Kamala Harris, but in our family is Dr. Jane Gates. So could all of my fellow Soros please stand so we can give her the pinky salute?
Ah.
So as you can see, her legacy runs deep. Auntie, we absolutely love you. We are here with you the entire weekend. And you will, in a few minutes, have yet another little surprise walking in. I won't give it away, but just keep your eyes peeled.
Oh, wow.
We love you.
And there's my husband, who's very quiet, who's been with me. Say hi, Al.
Others? Is there anyone else that on the screen who would like to say something? I know. Okay. Pam, is
Yes,
is
ma'am.
this all on YouTube?
Yes,
this all
ma'am.
on YouTube still?
Yes,
Oh,
ma'am. You
good.
have not.
Terrific. We'll now have a permanent record of all this.
You have not adjourned your meeting, so this is still live streaming.
Coordinated this whole thing for me. I came up with the idea, and we've been working together, and she did a beautiful job along with, the rest of the people she talked to. And I'd like to thank her.
Well, thank you all very much. You know, I one last comment. This is the second time that the first time we were to honor Jane with the college board about just when COVID hit. I don't know if they were coming here to honor Jane, and we had to cancel the meeting. So that was the first time. And today, I wish we had a full room. And again, COVID and everything else that's going on, because we would have had a full room. That's the legacy that Jane has in the state of Connecticut. So I thank you all for coming and filling up the room. And thank you, Jane, for everything that you do.
Thank you.
Okay. I guess I have to have an official motion to
Yes, you do.
adjourn.
Yes,
Can
you
I have a
do.
motion to adjourn? Okay, we have Aviva and report. Thank you very much. I'll put my mask on and take my
And
glasses
your
off.
live stream is stopped.
Okay.